This episode of Brains on Games is a preview of a game about balancing profit and reputation. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode we're going to talk about a game that's coming up on Kickstarter very soon. It's a game that has a dystopian sort of theme about corporations who are kind of running everything, and the players are playing as CEOs of these corporations who are trying to balance profit and their reputation. It's a game called Reputation. It was sent to me by the designer not too long ago. Reputation is a game for between 3 and 5 players. You can play a game in about 45 minutes, and it works with players aged 13 and up. Let's take a look at Reputation. Each of the players in the game is going to play as a corporate CEO, and you'll get a CEO card that looks like this, and you'll get a corporation as well. So these give you lots of combinations. There are, I think, 8 different ones in the box, and you can mix and match. Although for the first game, they recommend that you take matching ones because their abilities work together. So it is a game that has asymmetric player abilities. In the case of Darius O'Haron, he's going to win some extra reputation if he's able to collect 7 credits in a single turn. Each of the players is also going to have a player board. So you keep your CEO and your corporation alongside here somewhere, but this is the board where the action happens. You've got a number of workers. In a 3-player game, you use all 10. In a 4-player game, you only get to use 9, for example. So there's fewer workers when there's more players. You've got a little bit of information down here. You get 8 workers if you've got a 5-player game going. And what you're going to be doing in this game is using these workers to bid on projects. There are private sector projects, and those are going to earn you some credits, but you take a hit to your reputation. These are sort of evil things that these corporations are doing maybe behind the scenes. And then there are public sector projects that don't give you any coins out of the box when you first flip them over. We'll talk about what happens with those, but they do give you some reputation boost. And the reputation is very important in this game because no matter how much money you've earned, at the end of the game, the player with the lowest reputation gets eliminated and can't be considered to be one of the winning players. In a 5-player game, the 2 players with the lowest reputation are going to be eliminated, so they can't win the game. No matter how much money they've made, none of that counts if their reputation is at the bottom. So what are you doing in this game? Well, you're bidding on these projects using your workers. So the first thing you do is you create 2 decks, a deck of 10 public sector projects and 10 private sector projects. There are a dozen of these cards in the box. Now, this is a Kickstarter, so the artwork might change. The number of cards, lots of things might change about the game between this video and when it finally gets released. But you've got a few extra cards that aren't going to go into your stacks, which gives you a little bit more variability in the game. You'll start by flipping over one of each. So you've got a project here where you're doing some secret excavation, and you've got Eden 2.0, where you're sort of building some sort of housing or habitats for people. You've got some flavor text down here at the bottom that explains what's going on. The private sector project is one that's going to earn you some credits. So there are a number of credits. They've got these shiny, glossy cardboard credits here in the box. You've got a number of credits that are here and the number of reputation points you're going to lose at the end of the game if you do sponsor this project. And here, no credits, but you can see that there's 3 reputation points that you could potentially gain if you're able to sponsor the Eden 2.0. What players are going to do in this game is bid on either the public or the private sector project, or they can pass. If they're in the lead on one of these, they have to pass. You can't, try and win both at the same time. But if you want to bid on the private sector project, you use only 1 worker for that, but you have to take 1 or 2 credits off the project, and they go over here to the public sector project. So now the winner of this one is going to get a couple of credits, and the private sector project is worth a little bit less. So I moved 2 credits over. I could have moved only 1, but you're only bidding 1 worker on this private sector project. Now, the next player might decide that he too wants to bid on this private sector project, and that's very simple. It's only one worker, so they could bump me off, but then they also have to move 1 or 2 credits over to the public sector project. Well, now I'm no longer in the lead in this one, so I can either choose to go back and bid on this one again, dropping it down by 1 or 2 once more, or I can start bidding on the public sector project instead. And that's a little bit different because it's the number of workers for this one. So I might decide that I'm going to put 4 workers here on the public sector project. And if anybody else wants to take the lead, they're going to have to put 5 or more on there. And you've only got 10 in a 3-player game, or 9 or 8, depending on how many players there are. So if the red player won the private sector project, you would flip that over, you would put it in front of your board, and you can see that there's a symbol on your board that matches the symbol that goes with the private sector project deck. So the leader would know that's where that's supposed to go. It goes face down so that nobody else can see it anymore, and your worker stays on top. Now I've put a red worker on here, but I've only got 1 player set up on the board, so that it would have to be actually a green meeple for that to be over there, but the worker stays on the project for now. If you are the winner of the public sector project, it's a little bit different. So of course the leader is going to have this little green token. If everyone else passes and nobody wants this one, then the person who won it, the green player in this case, is going to take those 3 credits that were on there, and it too is going to move over now into the middle of the board. You can see on the player board that there are 2 spaces here with the symbol for the public sector project. So the winner is going to have this token, but where this project is going to go depends on the other players. So now I've got 3 reputation that I can get from this. Nobody's going to get any other coins because the credits go to the winner of the project, but the other players can now bid to co-sponsor that project, and they do just as if they were bidding to win it. They choose some workers, and they decide if they want it, they're going to secretly choose a number of workers and try to outbid the other player. Now, the number of workers on your board is always public information, but when you're making the co-sponsorship bid, you do take them all, you kind of divide them up between your 2 hands, and then you choose the one that you're going to reveal, and then you reveal how many workers you bid. So let's say the red player co-sponsored with just 1 meeple over here. Now, if there's a tie, let me mention that. The other thing that happens is, well, the other players are sort of deciding, your neighbors are deciding whether they want to bid on this to co-sponsor this project or not. The player who won it is going to take the token into one hand or the other, and that determines who wins in the event of a tie. So in this case, the player on my left would be the winner if there was a tie. If neither one bid any worker, the player on the left is going to get that project, and then it would move over to this side instead. So the workers that I bid stay on here, and the worker that the red player bid will stay on there as well. Now that we've got some meeples in the middle of the board, though, a very important thing happens. At the end of your turn, you can start to move your meeples back into, this is the rest area of your player board, and there's only space for 3. So if I had a bunch of workers on a public sector project over here on this side like this, then I could move that guy over as well. I did have 4 workers left, and they stay in the middle. Now, at the end of the turn, once everything's done, before you set up for the next turn, you're going to move 1 meeple from each of these areas into the rest area, and then the very first thing you do at the beginning of your turn is move whoever's in the rest area into your headquarters, and now these meeples are usable. But you can see if I bid a whole bunch of workers on one of these projects, they're going to be stuck there for a while. Only one of these guys can come off every turn. So, and I'm only getting back a maximum of 3. If I don't bid on the private sector project in the next turn, there's not going to be a meeple that comes back to me here. So I'm only getting 2 back now because there's nothing coming in from the private sector project. I've already claimed him. This is where I think the bidding mechanism and the budgeting comes in and makes this game interesting, because you're limited in how these workers come back to the table. It's not a game where you can take a turn and take all of your workers back. they're slowly feeding back into the rest area and then slowly feeding back into your headquarters. And workers are public information, so you have to be you have to show the other players how many workers you have, which allows you to do the math of who's going to win this project and who's going to wind up with the most reputation. Are they going to have enough workers at the end to do the co-sponsorship bid, or will the other player be able to win it? And what's not public information is the number of credits you have. So you've got the credits are hiding. All of these cards are face down. You're thinking about how much money you're earning and what your reputation is. These cards in the middle are going to suck away your reputation. They lower it. Every single one does so. These ones increase your reputation by some amount. In the case of the one that we played earlier, you get 3 extra reputation if you are the co-sponsor or the winning sponsor on that bid. So what you're doing in this game is you're thinking ahead. You're counting how many workers you have left on your board and how many are going to come back each turn. You're examining the other players' workers to see how many they have. Are they going to be able to outbid you if a good card comes up and you really want that project? And if you're planning ahead and budgeting and working towards a future goal, that's an example of executive functioning. Those executive functioning skills come up so often in these strategy games, and this one definitely gives you lots of information to think about and to use for planning. You also, though, have to kind of remember what cards have been played and who won what, so that you can judge whether or not, oh, I need to make sure I win this co-sponsorship bid, or I want to make sure this other player doesn't get it, because if their reputation gets too high, that's going to mess things up for me later in the game. So this is a game with a bidding mechanic where you've got some hidden information that you have to remember and some information that's visible to everyone. I quite like those kinds of bidding games, especially this one is neat where you're really funneling the workers back in very slowly. So you have to really plan ahead on your turn and judge, well, how many workers can I spare this time? It works those executive functioning skills and those memory skills. And the first time we played it, one of the players wanted to take it right away, take it home and play it with his family because he liked it so much. And I had to say, well, wait a second, I have to do a video on it before you borrow this game. So this is a game that we quite enjoyed. The bidding mechanism and the way that the workers funnel back, I think is really an interesting way to do it. And it allows you to plan ahead and think ahead a little bit, despite the fact that you've got some randomness in terms of the cards that are available on those public and private sector projects. So thanks once again to the folks who designed Reputation for sending this game. Like I said, it's coming up on Kickstarter very soon. I'll include a link to the campaign as soon as it's available to me. I'll put that in the show notes. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go, and the previous episodes are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified about future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.